Okay, and we're live. And for the first time, probably ever, we're early. What's going on? That might be the good influence of my friend right here, Mike Roach, who showed up on time and showed up early. Shout outs to Mike and shout outs to the Toronto Raptors. They've had a very interesting offseason already. We're here to talk about everything Toronto Raptors. We're here to talk about Masai's departure. We're here to talk about Fred, Pascal, everything that happened. We're here to talk about, hey man, your friend Chris Boucher potentially last dance in Toronto and what that's gone on like. But I'm here to, first of all, tell everyone to check out Mike's podcast. Like I gotta tell you, reality is something that is rare in Toronto Raptors media space. I love that Mike keeps it player friendly, that he keeps it real, that he comes at this from a very well-intentioned perspective. So definitely go check his podcast out. We're gonna, definitely talk a little bit about how Mike got into this game for sure. And make sure to give this video a like. Mike, how you doing today?
Appreciate it. Thanks you, Rob. I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. No, I'm good, man. I'm good. Appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast. I've been seeing you around for a little while, man. I like your style and the way that you do things. You're pretty unique in regards to coverage of the Toronto Raptors and the NBA overall. And you're very in depth, very in depth. So that's very good because I look for content like that when I'm trying to learn and find out different things. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I thought you were gonna say that I'm totally unfiltered and completely off my rocker, but
And you are, and I appreciate that as well because I like people who are, I like people who are themselves. I think that's a superpower. Whether you're in the media or life in general, you don't have to bend the knee or change who you are for anyone. I just like people who are themselves. I appreciate the realness.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know how to help it, to be honest. I don't. But you and I have conversed several times. I've had a lot of conversations with people in Toronto media, and this is not calling out anybody or whatever. I'm paying a compliment forward. I very rarely see people who are exactly who they are online, offline. And
Mm-hmm.
you're exactly who you are offline. When I see you on the podcast with Chris Boucher, you're this Mike. When I talk to you via DM, you're this Mike. Now you're on this, not now you're on the air. And I feel like players respect that. I have to, just from my brief interaction with players, they're always talking about how they don't like guys who switch up. They like to know where they stand with people. They don't want to hear that someone's saying something behind their back some way or another and then, saying something else to their face. So, that's definitely appreciated for sure. So,
Agreed.
yeah, where were you when you found out the Masai Ujiri news? What was that morning like?
That was interesting. I was at work and I was flabbergasted. First of all, I did not see that coming right now. I expected it at some point. I thought he would probably get through his contract before it actually happened, but I was shocked that it happened, but I wasn't surprised. I would say that, considering all that we've heard behind the scenes of what have transpired. I can't remember whether it was a year ago or 2 years ago. There was a bit of a blow up in a meeting in regards to Ted Rogers and Masai or whoever the hell it was in there. There was an issue. We know that. And, it's interesting because Masai he's huge, right? Like when you look at his name and his reputation around not just basketball, just him in general, politics, basketball, Giants of Africa, whatever it may be. Masai has a really big persona, big name. His reputation is huge. And at the same time, you have to start looking at it like, was this justified in them getting rid of Masai Ujiri? And because of what he does and how he does it, him winning a championship, him trying to get players to come here, whether it be free agency, trade, whatever. We know for the most part it's going to be by trade. Overall, he's done a fantastic job in his tenure while he was here. But the last 5 years haven't looked very good. And so you have to look at it from a standpoint where you say, okay, if I'm correct, Masai was the highest paid president in basketball.
Yeah, that
he was, right?
It was first or second, yeah.
It's pretty hard to justify being the highest paid president not making the playoffs. And that's probably in any realm of business, to be completely honest with you. I mean, from a business standpoint, when you're looking at being the highest paid, your team's not doing well, that's how a lot of guys look at it. Especially when when it's down to money, dollars and cents. You have new ownership, you're trying to clean up money in this place and that place. It's tough.
Are you an avid reader? I suspect you are.
I do a lot of reading.
I figured as much. I've listened to enough of your podcasts to see how in depth you get about politics and economics, and frankly, it's just not possible to be that well versed in so many different areas of life without doing a lot of reading. Something that I read when I was very young was the 48 Laws of Power. Again, controversial book at times for some people, but there was one thing that always stuck out: don't outshine the master, right? And Masai's bigger than the Raptors in a lot of ways. He is a larger than life persona. I was thinking back, has there ever been another president or a general manager who stood up in front of a, ruckus crowd and said, "Fuck Brooklyn"? I don't think so. And when
not
you do
that I remember,
has there ever been another president in Toronto sports history that I can think of where Sid Seixeiro and Tim McAuliffe are singing songs to them like "I Believe in Masai"? I mean, that's the type of thing that, I think makes you so big. You consider his work in Africa the most important continent in my life. And something that I'm so proud of is that, we had the only African born president in the NBA. And that's such a huge thing, but it comes with attention. And he just has such a gravitas. The first time I met Masai Ujiri was 2007. And he was, I think, an assistant general manager to Brian Colangelo at the time. I shook his hands, those giant mitts of his. And I listened to him talk for like a minute. And I was like, I don't think we're going to keep this guy long. Like, someone's going to see the potential of him. And then he goes into Denver. He comes back to Toronto. And, the rest is history. His legacy in Toronto is so large. And I wonder if people, at MLSC see that and say, well, this is probably a good opportunity to cut him at his wings, right? Because I certainly understand the perspective of a fan who says the Raptors didn't make the playoffs last year. The Raptors are not very good. The Raptors have been mismanaged. They've lost a lot of trades. But at the same time, this organization has been totally rebuilt from the ground up in terms of its reputation with agents, its reputation with players, its treatment of players, for the most part. Its treatment of players, it's just not a clown show. And it used to be a clown show. And I think there's a lot of people who are worried, was he the barrier between this being a clown show and this not being a clown show? And now the only good guy in Raptors, he's gone. Not Richard Petty. Not Richard Petty. Larry Tannenbaum on his way out. Tim Lawicki, way gone. Masai Ujiri, gone. Is this about to get really bad? So I think there's some fair, let's wait and see, but a little bit of cautious pessimism there. It's probably relevant to bring up you at this point. You've been in and around the Raptors for a long time. You're a known face among all the broadcast crew, the players, etc. So I think it would help our audience to understand a little bit about how you got started in this game, when you got started. Yeah, anything you want to share.
All right. So I played basketball growing up, not at a high level. I played all throughout high school as a youngster. I started with my brother. My older brother, was the second highest rated player in the country growing up in high school. So he was always around the game, and I was always with him as well. I grew up in Montreal until I was around 13 before moving to the GTA, which is kind of like why I know Chris, because Chris's manager and I played on the same team when we were kids.
Right.
And so we had a good relationship still growing up. And so I didn't see him for a while until maybe around 2018, when now he was managing Chris, and he was, at the games and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then I got to know Chris, and formed a bit of a relationship there. But I also started coaching from the time I was 15. So I started coaching when I was 15, coached until I was around 27, and then wanted a bit of a break. But at the same time, I went to college. I wanted to play in college. I went to Sheridan. Didn't make the team, but they wanted me as a red shirt. I didn't really want a red shirt because I was only going to be there for another year or two, I think, at that point. And so at that time, I've been coaching for so long and all that kind of stuff. I was working for the city of Mississauga, city of Brampton. And then after I was coaching and making money doing that. So I was like, best of both worlds, grew up with a single mom, doesn't have all the money in the world. So if I can coach basketball and get paid for it at the same time, I mean, why the hell not? Right. And I've been coaching since I was 15. I love it. Might as well continue. And so pretty much when I was, and the thing is, I went to school for business marketing. I was a business guy. I never went to school for broadcasting or anything like that, but I knew I wanted to do something in sports. I happened to get an internship at Sportsnet working for the Fan 590. So I was at the Fan 590 for a year. And then I was doing audio editing for the Fan 590 for commercials and cutting clips of, interviews during and after Raptors games, Leafs, a lot of hockey and all that kind of stuff. And then I was a reporter as well. So a lot of it would be like Toronto Rock. I would do stuff for PGA, going to interview people for golf and all kinds of stuff. Not too much Raptors, but just getting your foot in the door, getting the experience and stuff like that. So I went from school straight to being an intern, and then being an intern at Sportsnet, and then transitioning into working for the broadcast team for the Raptors as a broadcast assistant. And I've been doing that ever since. So I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I'm trying to figure out where I want to be, what I want to do. But yeah, that's just pretty much how it is. I've always been around the game. I've always been around executives that you see at the stadium, coaches, different players. I would, like, even before the CEBL, like when we had the National Basketball League of Canada, I would go to games. I would go to pro-ams during the summer, sweep the floors during halftime just to build relationships and meet different people at the games. I remember, for an example, just hanging around, like one of the John Wiggins, who's one of the vice presidents. I remember sweeping a floor at a pro-am, and I saw John Wiggins there. And I went up to him and I said, how you doing, Mr. Wiggins? My name is Mike. He looked at me and he goes, I know who you are. It's funny. Like, people are always watching. They always see what you do and how you do it. And so sometimes you just got to keep yourself around, do the small things just to get your foot in there, get in the door. And then, one of my mentors who's helped me along the way, who kind of got me into this, was the former producer for the broadcast. His name is Dan Gladman. And he's one of the guys who really got me to where I am. He's helped me out a lot. And he always told me that 50% is just being there. And then once you're in there, then you just kind of do your thing. You got to understand, learn how to be professional and navigate and build and cultivate relationships and stuff like that. So that's pretty much me. I'm kind of just like a journeyman, kind of going from place to place.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, the city is kind of small that way, right? You bump into people all the time. I used to have a friend of mine. I think she was dating Dan at some point, so that's how I even knew his name, because he would come up once in a while, be like, "Oh, that Dan." That happens. I think I met Akil Augustine once on a subway. Great dude. And I was like, yo, this is what I've been doing. Blah, 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 blah. I want to come on your show. And he's like, what's your Instagram handle? How many followers you got? And I was like, damn it. I guess I gotta build it up. I
Yeah.
gotta build up the platform. But it's important to counter narratives with a platform, right? Like, so
Mhm.
when teams, let's just say Scottie Barnes has work ethic issues, starts making the cover of Toronto Star. I wanted to make sure that I had a platform to be like, let's talk to his trainer about that. You know what I mean? Like, let's correct the record. This is very important. I think sports and narratives, you know what I mean? Like, that's super important. But it's super cool that you've kind of grinded your way up in this business. That's very awesome.
Yeah, man.
I'm wondering if
Appreciate that.
you
Quickly,
have
hold on. Just before you go, because I want to know as well, how did your love for basketball start? Because we've spoken, we've been off the record, we've talked before, but I didn't get like the in depth. So how did your passion and love for the game start as well?
I started with my parents, man. That's really, I mean, first of all, basketball is in my blood. I
Mm,
grew up in New York. I'm a Serbian kid. Like, yeah, basketball is pretty much in my DNA.
mhm,
And yeah, like my dad was always busy working. And the only time we would really ever, the only time I ever had his attention was on the basketball court. He would, he'd be very attentive to me on the court. Like, oh, this is how you got to fix your jumper. This is, no, I don't, I remember this one time I was playing this kid who was just way bigger than me, and I just kept getting swatted, right? I think I was like 5 or 6 years old. He was 8. He was huge, to me at least at the time. And then one time I went up for a layup and he hit me, and I went on the ground and I hit my knee, scraped my knee up real bad. And then I went over and started crying to my dad, like, I want to go home. I want to go home. This is not fair, blah, 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 And he's just like, if you go home, that's a choice. If you go back out there, it's a choice. So, in a lot of ways, taught me to fight on the court, really helped me hone my game. I was a much better jump shooter than anyone my age. Went to a
mhm.
lot of youth camps, got to play with a lot of players who ended up really good, later on. Guys like Javon Shepard are my age. So I saw Javon in high school. So that was pretty cool. Um, then, my parents got divorced, and, it was a really rough time for me and my mom, and we didn't really have anything to talk about. We legitimately had nothing to talk about. Anytime we talk about anything, it was a fight immediately. The only time
Mhm,
we ever had peace was when we were watching Raptor games. Only time. I'm trying to
mhm.
explain the game to her. We're watching, and it was just a experience to bond. So in a lot of ways, since my parents are not alive anymore, basketball reminds me of my parents. And in a lot of ways, my relationship with my parents was much better because of this game. My relationship with also my classmates, my teammates, basketball has given me a lot, So that's really what reinforced like my love for the game, playing it, being around it. And yeah, I'm only 5'11, so clearly I didn't make it very far. So you got to have a lot of respect for guys like Fred VanVleet who actually make it to this level at that size. It's very
Yeah,
difficult.
it
Damn, it's
is.
difficult. I went to a G League tryout once, and man, it was not fun. Got swatted into the third row 12, 13 times. This big 7-foot motherfucker in there. I was like, oh my God. I thought 6'5" centers were bad. So yeah, I mean that sort of started my love for the game. I'm curious if, in light of Masai leaving, if you have a favorite Masai memory.
To be honest, no, not really. I mean, when he said "fuck Brooklyn," that was pretty damn cool. I do like that. But the one thing I will say about Masai is this: I've never really had a conversation with the guy. I've talked to him like, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing?" And you kind of just move on. But I've never had a conversation with him, so I don't have any crazy stories about him. I will say this: every time I've seen him in the stadium, and he walks very fast. It's like he's a man on a mission at all times, right? When you see him during the game or before, after the game, the way he walks, he always knows almost like he knows exactly where he's going all the time, and he's trying to get there quickly, right? And in my head, I'm like, damn, he doesn't stop to do anything. He doesn't stop to say, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, he knows exactly where he's going and what time he has to be there. And to me, I always used to wonder why he was like that, right? Like he
He's a
doesn't
shark.
seem, yeah, why is he like that? It doesn't seem very personable. And then when I watched the documentary, the Giants of Africa documentary, and I remember the part in the documentary where he was going to the gym with these kids to have a camp, and the doors were locked after he already paid them because he was saying sometimes how corrupt it can be, depending on where you are in different places, even in Africa, and they want you to pay them more money. And when they took the chains off the door for them to go inside and start practicing, the way that he was talking to the kids about having to make change to stop things like this and how intense he was when he was talking to them. In my head, I was like, that's the reason Masai is the way he is. Because
Hmm.
he's on a mission for something that's just so much bigger than the game of basketball, that he has an obsession to be a positive change agent, right? For not just for sports. I think it's just for kids to become men, for them to become better people, not just become men, better women, and just for people to make positive change and improve the status quo and improve upon what we have currently. So when I think about Masai, that's kind of what I think about in regards to him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think of people like Masai. I haven't met a lot of people like Masai. The people that come to mind are people like Rob Stewart, who was a documentarian, very uh, famous documentarian, Canadian documentarian, who made Shark Water. I think about Rob. Rob was a friend. I think about Masai. I think about people like that, and I'm just like, they don't stop because they're sharks. Like the great white, it
Mhm.
swims great distance even while it's asleep, and they just got to keep moving. They got to keep moving because they're on a mission. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And the mission can be short, right? And they have this great capacity for change and this great capacity that they've been blessed with a vision, and they've been blessed with purpose, and they've been blessed with the means to do something to make change in the world. And I've attended several lectures of Masai's over the years, and I've listened and really read up in depth on his work in Africa. And man, like, if what he wants comes true, it changes
Mhm.
so many lives for the better. And it's not just about basketball, it's about it could be one of the greatest wealth redistribution you know, pathways in human history. And for a continent that desperately needs it, because it's a continent
Yeah.
that has been pillaged, dry by all other continents, and he's giving something back to a place that deserves it. So that to me, and of course, like, as much as you want to say my heart is for Africa, my heart is for Africa, also the realities of Africa are real. The
Mhm.
corruption is rampant. So he's fighting not only that side, but he's also fighting, the interests that be on the North American, European side of why should we care? So
Right. Right.
that, and it's all for the people. It's all for the people, the playgrounds, the grassroots efforts, the Giants of Africa program. It's always for the people. And he's like, people think it's like it's about basketball. No, man, it's this is an opportunity to have a league full of Pascal Siakams who have this type of money, Joel Embiid's and people like that. So that's the sad part. But also, if I can think of a silver lining to his time with the Raptors ending, is if he doesn't catch on, that's 1 year that he's going to get to put full force into his mission in Africa. So that's great
True.
from that
Mhm.
perspective. Um, we've talked a little bit off air and stuff on various issues throughout. I think the last year we've been communicating. For those who don't know, this podcast has been on the work for I think 6 months, 5 months, something like that. I reached out to you a long
Mhm.
time ago about this. Over your 6 years with the Raptors, obviously, Chris Boucher being with the Raptors, everything. How have you seen this organization change from championship till present date? Like anything that sticks out in terms of what's changed and what stayed the same? Because the results are very different.
Hmm. I mean, honestly, From championship to now, what has really changed? I mean, aside from the team having to rebuild itself, I mean, when we look at DeMar and we look at Kyle, right? And when they started to finally make some noise, I'm not sure anybody really saw that coming, the way that it gelled together with them kind of taking off like that. Like you trade Rudy Gay away, and we have DeMar, and I think we had Amir Johnson and Kyle, and they had a good vibe, and things kind of just click for them, and it ends up working out. And then you build, you build, you build. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard comes in, which was, I mean, just massive. You get him, you trade for a guy like Gasol, you get Danny Green as well. You draft a guy like Siakam, you get Fred VanVleet, you have a guy like OG. And to be honest, it's like to me, things change. And even thank you, Norman Powell as well. Things change when you lose Kawhi Leonard for nothing. Like it's here might be a good way to put it, maybe. I think sometimes a guy like Masai will get attached to his players, right? Whether it be a Pascal Siakam, for example. But even though you had a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who was like legendary in Toronto, you still had to do what you had to do to try to win this chip and trade him for Kawhi Leonard. I think with Pascal Siakam, he waited too long. So you did what you had to do with a guy like DeRozan, which I think you probably should have done with Siakam as well.
Mhm.
Like, to me, do you I've heard that phrase, trading a guy a year too early rather than a year too late.
Well, here's sort of my perspective on like maybe a more direct question. So we had obviously Casey, we had
Mhm.
DeMar, we had
Yeah.
Jama, we had Patrick Mutombo. There's a
Mhm.
lot of people that don't get credit for things going right when they're going right, but they do it as a unit. You know better than perhaps anybody. The
Mhm.
Raptors are 100+ person organization. The
Oh,
roster
yeah.
is much more than the players you see. It's the training staff, it's the nutritionists, it's the the strength and training stuff. Like it's everybody. It's so
Oh, yeah.
many people and so many influences and so many people. So when you start to lose good people, right? I wonder how much Dwayne Casey had to do with stabilizing the culture in Toronto. I wonder how much DeMar had to do with stabilizing the culture in Toronto. I've always wondered if DeMar getting traded, while necessary for sure, was also a big fork in the road for a lot of his younger teammates who really messed with him, and he was their guy. Where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, everything was made about, oh, Kyle Lowry's really upset that DeMar DeRozan got traded. Did anyone bother to ask how Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet felt, how Norman Powell felt, how OG felt? Because DeMar was a really big deal to those guys. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, you get the upgrades, you get the championship, and everything's great. But when Kawhi's gone, guess who else is gone? DeMar's gone. Casey's gone. Jama's gone. And all these people are really good people. Say what
Yeah.
you will about DeMar DeRozan, in the playoffs, just gem of a human being, loves his teammates, you know, and I feel like there was a vacuum there of leadership and somebody had to grab it. I was hearing, from friends who are maybe beat reporters now, and they're just like, something's off here. Guys aren't staying as long in practices. The vibe is a little bit different. The locker room feels a little bit divided to the point where, a year after that stuff happened, Masai Ujiri came out himself and said, we've been selfish. So that to me is like, what the hell happened? How do we lose it? Is it just contracts? Is it just bag chasing? Is it a lack of leadership? Like, and everyone's looking for a scapegoat. Everyone's like, oh, it's Scottie. Oh, it's Scottie. He's immature. Or, oh, you've lost this person or that person. Or maybe Masai's lost his touch. Masai's doing not enough work. Or maybe it's Casey. But it's just like, it's a lot of people, man. So
Mhm.
now it's like, I'm feeling the last 2 years, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the vibes are much better.
Way better. Way
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
I think
100%.
Darko and Jama and Evo and everybody here deserves a lot of credit, but I think also like Scottie deserves a ton of credit for this. I think the young guys that they've picked up deserve a lot of credit for this too. Uh, so how has it been the last 2 years being around this team?
The last 2 years have been better, in terms of their chemistry. It looks like they actually genuinely like each other, and that makes things very different, right? Like, I will say this, and I've said this on my podcast many times before. Um, Darko Rajakovic deserves a lot of credit because it seems like he's just he's just him. He doesn't have to put on an act for anybody. He's just genuinely him all the time. And I think players appreciate that. I've heard times where players would sit down and say, some of them said, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember hearing one of the players say, for the first time, I had a coach who would just sit down and say, how's everything going? What's going on in life? Like, what's going on with you? How's your family? And they're kind of confused by that because, I mean, you would think it would be like that maybe in a bunch of different places, but the NBA is the NBA. It's a big business.
Yeah, I mean, I think
And there's
OKC.
probably going to be some coaches who just don't care to do that kind of thing.
Right. I think Mark
We're all
Dagnall
built
is.
differently here, even though I'm loading up. Here we go.
Sorry, your Wi-Fi clipped
Sorry,
out
go
there
ahead,
for a
Rob.
second. No. Yeah, so I think Mark Dagnall is a
Yeah.
great example, I think, of how he's built that culture up in OKC. I remember hearing stories of how they continuously checked in with Chet Holmgren when he was going through his Liz Frank rehab. Shea's talked about, Dub has talked about, and I think players are very much smarter than people give them credit for. A lot of people think they're just jocks who play basketball, but I think these players have spent an entire life from the time they were 15 of adults trying to hoodwink them and lie to them, from recruiters, from colleges making promises, from agents trying to scam them out of money. These players are so much more mature at the age of 18 than myself or you might have been, in a normal setting. And so,
Yeah.
if I'm a Scottie Barnes, a highly intuitive, extremely intelligent person, 20, even at 22 years old, and this guy comes in, I'm really watching how he treats Malachi Flynn. I really want to see it. I want to see how consistent that energy is towards Malachi after a bad game and a good game. Watching him when he's dealing with the fans. I'm watching him when he's dealing with his staff. I'm watching him when he's dealing with the waitress when we go out for dinner. I want to know, is this a guy that I can trust? Because I'm not trusting you to rebuild my game and reshape our scheme. This was a huge thing with Scottie. He just did not seem to buy into take all the shots you want with Nurse. You know what I mean? There was push pull, there was hesitation, but now with Darko, oh yeah, 28-foot pull-ups, no problem. Darko wants me to take 10 threes, I'll take 10 threes. The buy-in element is very important. I also think it was pretty important that Dennis Schroeder was here. Obviously, a guy who could vouch for Darko from a previous stop, let everybody know, like, hey guys, you're in great hands. I think the fact that the league, there are stars in the league like Devin Booker and Desmond Bane who can loudly vouch for him. I knew a lot about Darko before he got hired. He was the only coach that I was actually following on Instagram when he got hired. So that was pretty dope for me because he comes from my city. And the first thing I did was I reached out to Scottie's trainer, I think like 2 seconds later. And I'm like, Scottie is going to love this dude because he is so consistent. Everybody in Memphis raved about him. Everyone in OKC raved about him. And it's like your reputation carries. And I think that at least alleviates a lot of the bullshit that goes on in player coach dynamics. So I think he's been huge, and I think his staff has been huge. I think the fact that Jama came back is huge because I'm a very, very big Jama Malaleo fan.
Yes. Great dude.
Yeah, like there used to be this thing, they call it the Jama effect in Golden State. They used to say, like, the way that he dealt with people, and it's just like the energy in your practice changes because Jama's there running it. He gets you happy, he gets you dancing, he gets you, talking a little bit. So it's the vibes are immaculate. I think the young players they brought in, they are really concerned with bringing good people in, man. Like I'm seeing it from John Mobo, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed, Jamison Battle. Not a single red flag in
It
any
matters,
of them.
man. It
They're
matters
assembling a
because
Hall of Fame human being team right here.
Mhm.
And I think that that matters tremendously. And I think they've done even more this year with Colin Murray Boyles and Elijah Martin and Chucky Hepburn, and also bringing in Big Dude yesterday, which was really, really dope, Mamu. So it's just like, you know, the vibes are back. The vibes are immaculate. I don't know if vibes win basketball games, but they certainly don't lose basketball games. That's for sure.
Well, listen, I actually like the Raptors roster right now. We don't know if this is going to be the roster come opening night. I mean, they might make a move. I'm assuming maybe RJ Barrett. I don't know, but I like this roster, and you know, a lot of people are talking about the Raptors. I see on some podcasts saying the Raptors aren't going to be very good and all that kind of stuff. And you know, Scottie Barnes is just like a half decent player, and Jakob Pertl, and you can tell immediately like these are just a lot of people who don't actually watch these guys. They don't watch this team play.
Mm,
They just see what they see in the highlights and be like, okay, these guys are no good. Where anybody can do that, really. I mean,
right.
anybody can do that. But when you look like right now would be quickly Barrett, Ingram, Barnes, Pirtle. That's a big lineup. You know, when you look at Jakob, Scottie, Ingram, those are three big boys right there. RJ ain't that small either, right? Quickly is the only guy who's miniature at the point guard position, but
And even him, 6'3" with a 6'8" wingspan, he ain't small. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
all
Like
could be scoring threats. Well, not necessarily Pirtle, but these other four guys. But you break down the defense. Pirtle is really good around the basket, good footwork, good hands.
mhm,
He just knows what he's doing. He's savvy around the basket. That's why they're so
right.
hesitant to trade the guy because you're not gonna. There are guys who play obviously the center position in the NBA. How many guys you would take over Pirtle? Are there guys? Obviously, there is. I mean, who are we kidding? Of course, there's guys that you want to take over, but for what he provides,
Right.
who are the centers that you are going to be able to get that are available? Is the question.
Okay. So I think you have brought up a great point. The Raptors just paid Jakob Pertl an incredible amount of money to stick around long term through 2029, I think, is when his contract runs out.
Mm,
The last year, as reported by Jake Fisher, is only $5 million guaranteed. So that
mm.
last year of $30 million, that was a very high salary. The cap is going up 10% each year, so that salary looks better and better each year. So I've heard Jakob Pertl is called the top 10 center in the league by some. I've heard him called top 20 by some. So I just want to,
I
you're
don't
a
know if
ball
I go
knower.
that far.
Yeah, I
Top
wouldn't
10.
either. Yeah, I
I don't
wouldn't
know
go
if I
top
go
10
that
either.
far.
So I'm going to list out a center. You tell me Yak or this guy. So if I say Jokic or Yak, you say Yak or Jokic. Okay,
Okay.
cool. I'm just going to go through and we're going to see how far we get. Y'all
Okay.
in the comments, y'all keep count because you'll know I'm terrible at this. Jokic,
Obviously, Jokic.
Wemby,
Wemby, for sure.
Anthony Davis,
I would I would take Anthony Davis, even though he has a injury history, but you can't deny the talent, so I'd still take him.
Zubac.
I like me some Zubac. I'm not gonna lie. I'd
All right,
probably
we
take
have four.
Zubac.
Joel Embiid.
Taking in his injury history,
And his contract.
Pirtle,
Okay. No, one bites the dust. Schengen.
Sangoon. I like him.
Okay. Rudy Gobert.
Pirtle,
Okay. Bam Adebayo.
Bam.
DeMontis Sabonis.
I love Sabonis. He's one of my favorite players. I gotta
Okay.
go with
Jared
Sabonis.
Allen.
Pirtle.
Okay. 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 Cool. I think Jared Allen, the rim protection is just a little bit better, but Pirtle, you know, he shot 67% from the free throw line last year. If Darko can get that up to 70%, I'm not totally mad at that. Draymond Green.
Hmm. Right now. Pirtle.
Mitchell Robinson.
Pirtle.
Bobby Portis.
I like Portis. Do like Bobby Portis, but I would take Pirtle.
Yeah, me too. Naz Reid.
That's an interesting one. I would take Naz Reid.
Miles Turner.
Pirtle.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
a close one. That's a close one. But
That's
what I saw in the playoffs, I'd go with Pirtle.
Zach Edey.
Pirtle.
Khalil Ware.
Pirtle.
Brooke Lopez.
Pirtle.
Goga Batadze.
Pirtle.
Daniel Gafford.
Pirtle.
Derek Lively.
Pirtle.
We're talking players. We're not talking about as assets. We're just talking about as a player on my team, right? That's what you're talking about? Okay, cool. Kristaps Porzingis.
Injury history, Pirtle.
Wendell Carter.
Pirtle.
Nikola Vucevic.
Pirtle.
Mark Williams.
Pirtle.
Luke Cornett.
He's interesting. Haven't seen enough, though. I do like him as a player, but I would still go with Pirtle because I've seen him a lot more.
Okay, Walker Kessler.
Pirtle.
Donovan Clingan.
He's interesting.
Yeah, he is a friggin' mountain.
He's interesting.
Yeah.
I think he could be really good.
Yeah. Might be really great this year.
Yeah. He's an interesting one. I would take Pirtle right now, but I'd be interested. I'm very interested. He's very young. He's very young.
Yeah.
So,
Mo Wagner?
to Pirtle.
Mo Wagner. Stretch 5. Block some shots.
No, I'll take Wagner.
Okay. Thomas Bryant.
Pirtle.
Steven Adams.
Pirtle.
Clint Capella.
Pirtle.
Beef Stew.
Who?
Isaiah Stewart.
Oh, Pirtle.
Jay Huff.
Pirtle.
Jalen Williams. Jay Will.
Jalen Williams. Pirtle.
Eve Nisi.
Pirtle.
Kaman Malawach. Thomas Sorber. Rookies.
You know what? The Malawak thing, that was interesting. I wanted the Raptors to take Malawak. I liked the pick that we got from a defensive standpoint. He looks really, really good. He looks strong, looks tough. He looks like he's already made to defend in the NBA from day one, which is really hard to find.
Absolutely.
But his movement on defense, his ability to cut guys off, trying to get to the lane without fouling, too, is really, really good. He looks disciplined on defense. He has a body to defend, which is really rare coming out of college, that a guy is physically strong. Like that's also one of the things that I liked about Scottie coming out of college, which was really rare.
Yeah.
This guy had a really strong, solid body on him. Like he looked like he was putting in that work in the gym from early.
Yeah.
Like when I can't wait to see what Scottie looks like this year. You can't judge. I don't judge anything for the Raptors by what I saw last season. Zero. That to me was just a write-off of a season.
Yeah. I hope nobody sold their Scottie stock. He's coming back, totally different player. Like, I mean, this is a guy who just cares about winning. So when you take winning off the table, he's just kind of fucking around. People think, you know, because they think from their own lens, probably because they're sports gamblers, probably because they have the lens of like points, rebounds, and assists. Like they just think, well, this guy should be able to put up 24 whenever he wants, right? And he should go out there and put 24 every night. But that's not really his game or his goal. His goal is to win games. He doesn't care if he wins a game scoring 8 points or 28 points or 38 points. He's going to do it whichever way. It's a little bit Jokic-like. In fact, you know, his mentality towards the game is very Jokic-like. His size and talent level right now is not. So let's see where he gets. But I'm watching some of the workout tapes and stuff. His handle looks a lot smoother. His jump shot is coming off much better. His guide hand is not in the way anymore. His thumb flick has gotten a lot better. His footwork on his gathers has gotten a lot better. I think people are going to be really surprised because, you know, the president who drafted him, who believed in him, who held him out of all those trade talks, he just got canned. And I'm seeing Scottie Barnes saying, oh, I got to prove myself to the next president that I'm the franchise guy and I'm worth building around. So I think he's going to come out like gangbusters. So continuing on our list, Nick Claxton,
Pirtle,
Al Horford,
Pirtle,
Nick Richards,
Pirtle,
Santi Aldama,
Pirtle.
and I'm assuming Yusuf Nurkic, Jonas Valanciunas, Jalen Duren, and Sandro Mamukelashvili are not going to move you. So, yeah,
No.
I mean, for you, Pirtle is close to a top 10 center. I think if we start debating the contract value or trade asset value of some of these guys, then the debate gets a little bit different. But as a player next year, yes, I think the Raptors have, a top 15 center. And, I think they have one of the best backups now behind him on a minimum contract, which is pretty dope. Speaking of that, there's a player that seems to be missing from the Toronto Raptors roster right now, and that's Chris Boucher. You had a podcast with Chris Boucher. You're obviously close with Chris Boucher. I watched a podcast of yours, I believe last season, saying what's going on. Why are the Raptors not playing Chris Boucher? I've been very critical of Chris throughout the years, but I've also been one of those people that just respects the shit. I respect the hell out of him. So you can be critical of the game, but you cannot disrespect the grind. Like, the grind is relentless. His connection to the fans is like second to none. I think immediately when Chris comes onto the court, it's like the fans are like immediately engaged.
Yeah,
the fans love him.
Yeah.
The fans love him, and for good reason. So, what are your thoughts on Chris? And the Raptors are over the tax right now. I don't think he's coming back. So,
with Chris,
I think your internet
got me.
clipped out again. I think your internet clipped out for a sec there.
Oh, there we go. We're back. Yeah. Still clocking, but I think I got you here now.
Okay. Should be good.
Okay, got you. So for Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
I got you here now.
Yep.
For
You're
Chris, good. It's like, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here at this point, or if he's going to be back. Know that Chris wants to be here. Definitely wants to be here. There are also other teams that want Chris Boucher, and a bunch on the West Coast, some in the East as well. I know a bunch on the West Coast who really wanted him at the trade deadline as well. Really wanted Chris as well. But he does want to be here. I don't know what that's going to take. They may have to trade somebody. I'm not sure how the money is looking to the space that they have financially, but I'm not sure Chris is going to be back unless they make a move first. And I think he might be holding out or waiting to see if that space is going to be available for him to be here before he chooses to go elsewhere.
Well, this is very commendable. First of all, I think the Raptors need a player like Chris Boucher. Weirdly enough, they don't have rim protection on their team really at all. I think the closest thing that you could say resembles rim protection is Jakob Poeltl and Scottie Barnes, and neither one are blocking shots at the rate of Chris Boucher. I think the analytics would tell you that the Raptors are a very decent team when Chris Boucher is on the court. And I think with players like Brandon Ingram, players like Scottie Barnes operating at the nail, a stretch 4, stretch 5 hustle guy who can come in for 10, 15 minutes and give you just relentless energy, run the court, especially with how fast the Raptors want to play. This is a valuable archetype, especially if the price tag is no longer $11 million, $12 million, but rather, a $4 million, $5 million type of deal. I think he's totally worth it. I think critics of Chris would argue maybe he doesn't really fit into Darko's, 0.5, decision-making offense because he doesn't always make the quickest decisions. But I'd say he's gotten a lot better at it. He's gotten a lot better at it. And I think, if a team does sign him, I think Raptor fans and I'm just putting my point of this on the record. I think Raptor fans are going to watch him in another situation and say, "What the hell? What the hell?
Yeah,
Why are they getting this and we couldn't get this?" And that seems to be, something that Raptor fans went through with Pascal Siakam, this current playoff run with OG Anunoby, with Fred VanVleet, and I think an organization, usually the success and failure of an organization comes down to, do you get the best out of people?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because if you don't, then they just go and show the best of themselves somewhere else. Obviously, Pascal was very loud and said, I was in dark times here, whatever. I would like to think that the Raptors can get the best out of Chris Boucher in a role. And right now, to answer your question about where the Raptors are in terms of their, cap sheet and stuff, well, after signing Colin Murray Boyles and, the Sandro deal and the Garrett Temple deal, they're slightly over the luxury tax line. I do not suspect that this team is paying luxury tax this year, given where everything is, given the fact they're not really contenders right now.
Yeah.
So I assume that it's going to come down to an Ochai or RJ in very unlikely Grady or Emmanuel Quickly salary dump, where they take back less money from a team that is willing to go a little bit higher and maybe has a little bit more room under the tax, and that way they can sign Chris Boucher. But that's
Yeah,
kind
and we've talked about this before, and you have your show is very in depth, and because your show is very in depth, I'm assuming that a lot of your subscribers and your followers and your listeners are pretty well versed on the game, right? And so, because of that, what I would say to them is, as a guy who coached for over 10 years at all different levels, right? High school and house league and different stuff like that. I would say that one of the great things about a guy like Chris Boucher is, and that we've talked about, regardless how good Chris Boucher plays or how bad he plays, as a guy who's coached and played, there's something just great about a guy where you never have to question his effort level.
right.
Like just a guy who is going to go out there all the time, and whether he plays good or bad is going to give you everything he has while he's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't find that in every player. You just can't. Like he plays with a reckless abandon. Chris is on his back as much as he's on his feet when he's on the court.
Right.
And it's just it's tough to find guys like that all the time, who just come all the time, whether it's 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 8, 10, 11, 13. If you put him out there for a whole half, you know how he's going to play. Like I mentioned, maybe it's not great all the time, but damn it, he's going to go into the stands. He's going to jump into the stands for you. He's going to be high-fiving and kissing babies before and after the game. It's the effort for me. It's the effort. People don't understand. Like, Chris started playing basketball seriously when he was damn near 20 years old.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, damn near 20. Like the story of Chris Boucher and how he got to where he is right now is remarkable. Remarkable. It's unbelievable what this guy has done and what he's accomplished.
I mean, yeah. And I think from an analytics perspective, Chris is a really freaking good player. Like, I mean, people really don't give it credit, but he was a huge part of some of the winning that the Raptors did this year. And if you just look at positional versatility, I mean, how many positions this guy guards? Small forwards, power forwards, a little bit of centers, a little bit of shooting guards. He's a decent spot up shooter. He's great in transition, right? The only thing in the offense that sticks out right there like a sore thumb is that passer rating in 5th percentile. Yeah, we get it. Chris Boucher is a play finisher. He's not a playmaker. He's not somebody who's going to be, dicing you up for 5-6 dimes. But there's a value to a guy who's 6'9" with like a 7'4" wingspan who can just come in and completely change a game. There has to be a value in that. Like, there's no way in hell. Like, I often do the line of demarcation. I mean, to anyone who's curious about, you know, how far Chris's game has come, like go take a look at his go take a look at his stats profile. But
Yeah.
yeah, I I always draw the line. There's 450 players in the NBA, right? I always
Hmm.
draw the line at 250. Those are the guys who can really, really make a difference. Are you
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
250? Right?
Hmm.
Because really, there's like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 basketball players in the world all vying for 450 spots. And a lot of those spots are going to go to young players who don't really contribute to winning, don't really do a lot for winning. But, you know, then you have a guy like Chris Boucher who can definitely come in. And by the way, wasn't bad the last time the Raptors were in the playoffs. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
he was good. So yeah, like the fact that Chris Boucher is, you know, I don't know. I think he'll have suitors. I think there are enough smart general managers out there that know that a guy like this off the bench for 10, 15, 20 minutes a night, you know, when you
Oh
need to
yeah.
change a pace, that's
Oh
going
yeah.
to be very, very valuable for somebody. I'm positive. But that being said, do you feel like, do you like, I don't understand why he didn't play either. On one hand, I do because they were trying to lose, and he's not good for losing. Like
Right.
he's,
I
you
do
know,
understand that. Yeah.
yeah. On the other hand, why not do for him? Okay, here's kind of my point. I kind of have hated and loved how the Raptors treat players. On the one hand, you're kind of happy that the organization respects Fred and his championship pedigree enough to not trade him to Milwaukee, forcing him to be a backup guard in a contract year. On the one
Yeah.
hand, you admire that, you know, your general manager slash president have enough respect for Pascal Siakam to not throw him to the Hawks or the Kings when he doesn't want to be there again in
Right.
a contract season. You appreciate that you're willing to do business with a team that is currently trying to sue you in the New York Knicks in order to get OG Anunoby to his position. Okay.
Hmm.
All that being said, those are all Raptors championship guys. And so there's a little bit of, you know, this is our omerta or our code of ethics with these guys. And other people around the league are going to see that we're not dumping guys the way the Bucks are. We're not trading guys in the middle of the night and not giving them any warning like they did to Drew Holiday. So this is going to help our cred, but also it's the right thing to do. But then why not? Why not Chris? Why not? Why does Chris not get the same benefit in that situation?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the same thing. I don't really know and understand that situation. Um, I've asked Chris about it before, like, what the hell is going on? What do you think is going on? But Chris is one of those guys he doesn't really complain about anything. He doesn't talk bad or badmouth anybody. And so he was just like, I'm not really too sure like what's going on or whatever, but it is what it is. He said he'd just come out and just continue to, do his thing in practice, warm up, do what the team asked him to do, and that's it. And then see what happens from there. But I can tell you this from what I know, Chris wants to be in Toronto. I know that.
Hmm.
I do know that. So what the situation is, and if he's going to be in a Raptors uniform in another week or two, I have no idea what's going to happen there. To be honest, I have no clue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would suck. But I wish him well if he ends up on another team, and I'm sure that he is going to provide value. Uh, you know, maybe a reunion in Golden State would be something that would really help him. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's one of those teams that could be looking for someone like him. I think the Lakers could really use a player like him, man. Next to
Yeah.
Luca, holy shit. I mean, he would be an instant fan favorite. So I'm not worried about Chris. I think, you know, the last year, the last couple of years, I think even the last 3 years, you could make a case that there's always been good moments and bad moments for Chris Boucher, right?
Yeah. Of
But
course.
through it all, you know, he stays real. I know he's really close with Scottie. Um, and me personally, I just, you know, I hate how many of the guys who were closest to Scottie we keep trading. So
Mm.
I'm rooting for Chris to stay on. Okay, so your thoughts on the offseason so far? The Raptors have made quite a few decisions. Obviously, ninth overall pick. They go for, I think, what is the best immediate contribution. There were other players on the board like Carter Bryant, like Noah Senge, like Kaman Malawach, who you like, who might have been maybe they'll be ready in a couple years. And with everything happening in Toronto Raptorland right now, my suspicion is that immediate impact was of high value with this 9th overall pick. The reason I say that is if reports are to be believed that they were shopping this pick for Derek White, Kevin Durant, that's immediate impact. If we are to believe that this Masai being gone thing was there in the works for months, which, yes, it has been in the work for months, then he knew that this player was going to be basically determining whether or not the Raptors maybe make the playoffs this year. He could be the difference. If this player can play and actually contribute and guard the way CMB can, and he can get out there on the court and be a connective passer in Darko's offense, i.e. he doesn't have to learn the game like Kaman Malawach, well, his immediate contribution is $6 million. It's not dead space of development money for the Raptors, So I think Masai is looking at this like, hey, I put Bobby Webster in place here. I put Darko Rajakovic in place here. And the next guy is going to come in and evaluate them on their performance next season. And MLSE is not going to be too kind if the Raptors miss the playoffs in the depleted East.
Right. And that's a big part of it. Right. And like you mentioned, you talk about a ready now player. That's him. He's going to be ready to play immediately and play right now. Right. And, for me, because you talked about some of these young guys before, right? Like for me, I know you are as well. I'm a massive Jacoby Walter fan. I love Jacoby Walter.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love Jacoby. I think he can play. He ain't afraid, can shoot the 3 ball, can get to the rim, can defend, can pull up mid-range. I love everything about Jacoby Walter. I can't wait to see him play this season. Okay.
Summer League in 7 days, baby. Summer League in 7 days. Like go out and score 25 points per game, Jacoby.
Yeah, I love Jacoby Walter. But getting Brandon Ingram to me was really big, right? Like and for the price that you got him for. I mean, for Olenek and Brown. I mean, wow. It shocked the hell out of me when that happened.
That 2026 pick. Can't forget that Indiana 2026 pick, because that might be a lottery pick now, but.
Yep. And so a lot of that was done at the trade deadline. Like that was huge. And so one thing I will say is, and we've talked about this before, I think people are sleeping on the Raptors right now. I really do. I think the Raptors are a solid squad right now. And people haven't seen Brandon Ingram play in a while, right? And you know what happens when you haven't played in a while? People forget, man. Like you might remember the name, but Brandon Ingram is a baller. Like Brandon, he's nice. Yeah, Brandon Ingram he's a flat out baller. He can hoop. And so when you look at a guy like Scottie Barnes, right? And you mentioned the things that Scottie can do. Scottie, like in terms of being an athlete, Scottie's one of those guys who's kind of just a freak. So his second jump is fast as hell, can rebound, can defend, can probably be a better 3-point shooter when the season starts, but he can make that 3 ball, can hit from mid range, can get to the basket, has a handle in the open court. He can find guys. He's very unselfish in the way that he plays. He doesn't have to drop 30 every night. He'll hit you with 10 assists. He'll hit you with 13, 14 rebounds. He'll get you with 5 or 6 blocks in some games. He does it all. And so when you put all these guys together, Scottie doesn't have to do all the scoring when Ingram's there. When a Quick is there, when Pirtle is there, you can spoon feed Pirtle. Pirtle doesn't have to give you a bunch of points. You want Pirtle defensively. You want him to be able to rebound. You want him to be able to block shots. But when you're breaking down a defense and you're slipping it off to him in the dunker spot, Pirtle finishes in that dunker spot better than I think a lot of centers do in the NBA. That's the only thing with it. Like, that's the thing with Pirtle. When he catches the ball at the basket, I'm confident for the most part that Pirtle's going to finish. Whether it's a little flush dunk or he's going to lay it in. That's why guys like Rudy Gobert, I like him. He's an anchor, especially defensively. but it's those dishing off in the dunk, like that kind of stuff drives me crazy. Dropping the ball, it's falling out of his hands, and he doesn't have soft hands like Pirtle does. A little, push shot. That's what I like about Pirtle. His game is polished in that aspect where
Right.
he's going to get you, probably 13, 14 points a game. He's not going to have to do anything crazy playing with Scottie and Ingram and these kind of guys. That shouldn't be his job anyway. But when you put all these guys together, I think, from an offensive standpoint, I think they're going to be good. And from a defensive standpoint, they're really long and active. And I don't know if you look at the other teams in the East and you look at the front court, how many teams are going to be bigger than them from a size perspective?
If you're just talking about those three guys, not a lot. If you're talking about the backups included, let's see. Indiana doesn't have a center right now. Pascal's 6'9". He's not really bigger than BI. Their small forward is definitely not bigger than Scottie. So not Indiana. I think, Orlando is going to be bigger.
Orlando.
Paolo and Franz are just enormous human beings. They're both like 6'9", 6'10". Wendell Carter's about 6'10"-ish. So, Jonathan Isaac is enormous. So Orlando's going to be bigger.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, 6'11" and 7 feet. Yeah, they'll be bigger. And shoot, if Philly is healthy, will Philly be bigger with Joel Embiid? Not really. Atlanta's pretty big. If you think about it, Atlanta's pretty big and pretty long with Zach Reese-Shea and Jalen Johnson up there. They're pretty big. I know there's one team that I'm forgetting that is huge right now. Who am I thinking about? Atlanta? Someone's saying Houston. Houston is not in the East, bro. Shit. I'm just going down the list of teams in the East. Cleveland. Cleveland's enormous.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cleveland with Evan Mobley, 7 feet. Evan Mobley. So I think, look, the Raptors struggled against size last year. They got killed by Cleveland both times. Size is hard to play against for sure. And I think if we're talking about, Grady Dick was the 5th member of that starting lineup last year. Obviously this year he's going to go to the bench for BI. There's no world in which he's starting over BI or RJ. Just politics, but also they're just way better players than him. So BI is such an upgrade on Grady. I feel like people who haven't watched BI for a while, they just don't realize how big an upgrade he is, not only offensively, but also defensively. He's bigger than Grady. He's stronger than Grady. He's way longer than Grady. So he can offer a little bit of that weak side shot blocking. I think, as much as, you've said, you've alluded to BI as a hooper, BI as a baller. Yeah, BI as a hooper and baller. And I've been a huge Brandon Ingram fan ever since he, was at Duke. But I don't think he's ever been in a great situation for him. There's like one year where I feel like, okay, this is perfect for BI. And that was the year with Lonzo in New Orleans. And he was an all-star that year. Since then, it's been a lot of bigs clogging the paint, playing off of Zion. Is Zion coming? Is Zion not coming? JV's down there. He's in the post. Oh, here's another injury. BI gets injured. It hasn't been great. He hasn't played off of great playmakers. CJ McCollum is not a point guard. So playing off of Scottie is going to be great for BI. I think playing in Darko's system, which consistently generates some of the best shots in the league, right? The shot quality index for the Raptors has been off the charts the last 2 years under Darko. It's just the finishing talent has not been there. Bruce Brown and Davion Mitchell taking threes are not the same thing as Brandon Ingram taking threes. Grady Dick coming off a screen is not the same thing as Brandon Ingram coming off the screen. So I feel like the Raptors have, the bare bones skeleton of what they want to do. I think it was just a matter of getting better play finishers, and Jakob is a huge part of that. And so is BI, and so is IQ, and so is RJ. And I think they'll all be much more efficient playing together because, again, to anyone who's citing RJ and Scottie's inefficiencies, I'll remind you, they were playing with Bruno Fernando, Colin Castleton, Davion Mitchell. There's a lot of players,
Exactly. And it's always going to be tougher when you're playing with those guys. No offense, but the better players that you have in your lineup, right, to go alongside with you. Like if Brandon Ingram is on the strong side, weak side, whatever, you make a skip pass, you throw a cross court pass, he's a threat to actually make that shot. Quickly and Barrett, when all these guys are in the lineup together. That's why I don't judge anything by what I saw last. Nobody was in the lineup together. Like I don't even know how many games that you had your entire starting lineup.
They played 150 minutes together last year, which, breaks down to about 3 total games. Like, that's ridiculous. And, it didn't look great, in fairness. It's funny, when we traded for Jakob, I was very upset because I wanted us to tank. However, acknowledging that, I think Jakob is, and this is going to sound very crazy and out there, but actually he has a lot of Tim Duncan in him. And the marketing is not there for that, right? Jakob is a very quiet, unassuming person. You never see him in ads, really. You never really see him drawing attention to himself. He barely ever gives press interviews. Just goes off to Austria, fucks off for an entire summer. You never hear anything from him. However, when you actually watch him on the basketball court, offensively at least, he does a lot of Tim Duncan stuff. And Tim was one of my favorite players growing up, and it's clear as day to me that the Raptors are working with him to make him better, just like they did with Chris Boucher last year. This is not a development staff that just gives up on you because you're 29 or 30 years old. And I think we saw that in his free throw shooting. I mean, this is a guy who walked into last year 54% from free throw line on his career. That is abysmal. That is borderline Shaquille O'Neal. He is awful. It's pretty bad. And suddenly 67.4%. Like, that's almost freaking reasonable. Does anyone believe me when I say Jakob Poeltl shot better from the line last year than RJ Barrett? Sounds crazy. That sounds crazy, right? But it's true. It is true. So I think they're getting better with him. I think they're improving his touch. He took more shots last year than any other career. I think the second most shots in his career from outside 10 feet last year. So again, like, if we can work on maybe like a pull, like a bank shot, like Timmy D, if we can get that bank shot down, because he can hit free throws at 67 clip, I believe you can, and you have a touch around the basket like he does, I believe you can hit that bank shot. So if we can get his bag a little bit more varied, and then obviously him as a screener, just like that's what made Tim Duncan so valuable up until the age of 40, is he was always this great screener, just highly intelligent. So we're working with him on his playmaking and making him a post hub. Like, there's a world in which Jakob is actually worth every penny of what he signed.
And listen, when you said that you wanted the Raptors to tank, right? I'm sure a lot of people probably did as well.
Yep.
And what I try to tell people is maybe Masai wanted to as well, but he is not the guy who can necessarily make that decision. He has to answer to somebody as well when he's making that decision.
Right.
And I think people need to understand that. Like, Masai may say, yeah, we want to do this. And then ownership goes, yeah, you may want to do that, but damn it, we ain't doing it. And so if they say that you're not doing it, guess what? You're not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, with Wemby and Amen Thompson hanging in the balance of tanking, and Derek Lively and Cason Wallace, I mean, you're really just hoping at this point that Grady Dick becomes a lights out shooter. And I think at this point, I'm looking at the bench. It's very young, especially if Chris doesn't come back. That's a very young bench.
It is.
We are talking about a 26-year-old Mamu Kelishvili, who we just signed as your backup center. You're talking about a 21-year-old rookie as your backup power forward. I think Grady's 21, 22. He's your backup small forward. Jacoby is 21. He is your backup shooting guard. Shed is in his second year, even though he's 23 years old, I think going on 24 soon. He's your backup point guard. Are we seeing bench mob 2.0?
You mentioned it, man. They're really young, but damn it, I think they can be good. I mean, they're going to be young. They're going to get out and run. They're going to be feisty. They're unselfish. I'm interested to see if this is the bench, for the most part, that will be there on, in October when the season is ready to go.
Right.
But that's the one thing that concerns me. Yes, they are young, but they can play.
Well, I didn't mention two guys specifically, and I think they were two of the best defenders the Raptors had last year, and they were a huge part of why the Raptors defense turned around last year. I don't know if you know this, but over the last 44 games, the Raptors were a top 5 defense. And
I did hear that.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
I didn't know that, but I did hear it the other day.
Yeah, so like when you consider okay, yeah, the schedule was a little bit easier, but their defensive rating held up against the Bostons and the OKCs of the world too. Like they were a good defensive team. They took on the identity of Scottie. He really dialed it up on that end. But Ochai and Jonathan Mobo were a part of this. And Ochai and
Mm.
Jonathan Mobo might be on the outside looking in right now because of potentially NBA politics. Ochai is extension eligible. Jonathan Mobo is not the 9th overall pick. So I'm like, the Raptors actually have depth up until 12. So they can withstand some injuries here. But I've been a big proponent even since before the draft. This team probably needs a consolidation trade.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough talent. Like, it's not like OKC where, like, okay, our starting lineup is stacked. So, yeah, it's great that we're I don't know if our starting lineup is stacked. You know, there's some holes. There's some issues. There's some spacing issues. There might be some defensive issues. I don't think RJ is the greatest defender. I don't think Quickly has been a great defender. I think Yak is a decent player, but maybe not the greatest rim protector. He's certainly no Rudy Gobert or Miles Turner on that end. I don't think anyone's there to actually help him be a rim protector. I mean, it helps if you're not a great rim protector. It helps that Scottie and BI are flanking you on left and right. That helps a lot, you know, in terms of the weak side shot blocking. There's a really good chance that starting lineup actually works out really well. But I certainly don't want to see Ochai on the outside of the Ross. You know, it's just 43% shoot. I didn't even bring up Jameson Battle. Like, yeah, that's 13 guys. And we talking about Chris Boucher, that's 14. That's 14 guys that you could make a real case are NBA players.
Yes.
Oh, gone are the days. Gone are the days of Nick Nurse saying, I don't have a backup. You know, so they've really restocked this, and I think they've done it through a lot of unconsolidation trades where they've traded Pascal, but they got back like 4 things. They traded OG, but they got back Mobo plus Quickly plus Barrett. So I think they've finally solved the issue of, and now you see, you know, with the Brandon Ingram trade, they traded 3 assets for 1. I think they need to do that one more time. That's kind of where I'm at with the Raptors. I think they need to do that one more time.
Yeah, you could be right there. Yeah, I mean, because like you mentioned, it's a lot of guys, and they're not all going to be in the rotation. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, they went for an NBA ready guy in the second round as well. Elijah Martin is like an NBA.
Oh, I like him.
I like him. You watch? Did you watch him during the tournament?
I did.
What do you like about him?
Freak. He's tough, feisty defender. I like feisty defenders and guys who can defend 94 feet. That is, I just absolutely love that. Pests on defense. It's like, you know, a guy who I really love to watch, and we got to see him in the finals.
Andrew Martin.
TJ McConnell.
Okay.
TJ McConnell is annoying. Always in your face. He's tough. He's just such a pest. Like I just love watching him because he's a difference maker. He's a difference maker. And the way he does it, right? From a defensive standpoint, like I mentioned, just 94 feet in your face. You're dribbling up the court. He's turning you from side to side. He's breathing all over you. He's probably getting spit all over you at the same time. He's just an annoying freaking pest, like a damn college player. And that's why I love watching TJ McConnell, because he never runs out of energy. He never runs out of energy. And so when you can get a guy like that, I like it. Just small, especially when you're small. When you're a player, you don't have much size. You got to be able to use that size wisely. You ever be on the basketball court? You're playing against a guy who's small, but he's really quick on defense, and he's always in your grill, and it's just annoying. I love that personally. And so this Elijah is like, he's just so athletic too. Like he can jump, he can get over the rim. He's a nice player. I'm happy we got him. I'm excited to see what he can do in summer league.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you consider the older rookies that we've invested in, Chucky Hepburn, Elijah Martin, Jameson Battle, Jonathan Mobo, what's the sell on the older rookies? Is they're usually quicker to contribute. They don't have as far to go physically. Their game is a little bit more mature. They've already gone through the maturation of a human being that one needs to go through. Like obviously a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, fundamentally very different people, gone through a lot of different shit. So I think to myself, with the immediacy of that in place, yeah, the Raptors are probably prime contenders for, because there's no real projects on this roster.
Right.
Ulrich is the only one. He's
Mhm.
literally the only one. You can scan down from two-way to now. You can say, yeah, Scottie has a long way to go. Mobo has a long way to go. Grady might, theoretically, Darko called him a 16-year-old. He has the body of a 16-year-old 2 years ago. So maybe he's up to 18 years old now. So yeah, but I mean, those are the three guys that
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like, yeah, like CMB, obviously he's a rookie. Yeah, he's gonna have some growing pains. All these guys are gonna have growing pains, but RJ's ready to hoop right now. RJ's
Yeah.
like RJ played in the playoffs 4 years ago and he was
Yeah.
good. Okay. Like this is a young team, but it's not a super inexperienced team. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I do count 2 Final Fours for Elijah Martin as like legit big game experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why a guy like Fred VanVleet is able to come in from Wichita State and almost by year's end completely erase DeLon
Oh, yeah.
Wright and Corey Joseph from the roster in terms of your depth chart and just establish himself. And I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Martin is going to push, Grady Dick and push Jamal Shed for minutes. Internal competition is great,
Mhm.
obviously. And, maybe at the trade deadline, the Raptors look at this and say, you know what, we can package three guys. We can probably add a couple picks if we're really close, and we can go get a star. We can get another star. We can get a rim protector. We can get an all-star point guard
True.
if John
Yeah.
Morant or someone comes up. So I think the Raptors are in a good place from an asset accumulation point of view. What's your prediction for the Raptors this year? Playoffs? How
I'm
high?
gonna say playoffs.
I need a win total, Mike. I need a win total, and I need
Okay.
what round are they exiting the playoffs in?
I'm gonna say for win total,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say 40. I'm gonna try to be exact.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 40. I'm gonna say 47 wins.
Okay, 47 wins. The Raptors have
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm
the
gonna
Raptors
go.
have hit that mark quite a few times, weirdly enough, and throughout their history. 47 and 48 is usually the turnaround season.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 47. That's being very optimistic.
You think that's being optimistic?
I think so. What do you have them at?
I have them at 44 wins, but I think looking at the East right now, looking at Indiana losing Miles Turner and not getting DeAndre Ayton, looking at some of the bottom feeders, I don't know, man. I have a lot more respect for Washington and Charlotte right now than I did, a couple weeks ago. I think they could be sneaky tough. I think the Chicago Bulls, despite the fact like they're not an easy win, but I think the Raptors are going to be super locked in. They have the benefit of continuity. This is something that, in sports matters so much, is like how many big pieces are you trying to implement? They've had like 7-8 months now, or well, they've had 5 months at this point with Brandon Ingram. And so while, yeah, they haven't played on the court together, they've had him in their gym. They're not bringing him in new. He's, working with them in the off season and stuff. So I'm actually going to overshoot you by 1 win and say 48 wins. I say they
You're gonna say
match.
48.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to say 48. So hopefully we're
I'm
right, and we're not looking at this podcast when they're finishing with 32 wins next season, saying like, "Oh,
I
we
know.
really overshot this bad."
Yeah, I know.
But at least we have a lottery pick. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Hey, listen, I'm it's true though. It's like when I'm looking at the Pacers without Halliburton, Boston without Tatum, Milwaukee,
Well,
I
it's
think.
not just Tatum though. They're without Tatum. They're
Yeah,
without Drew Holiday. They're
Drew
without
Holiday
KP.
too.
They're without Al
Yeah,
Horford, right?
you're
And
right.
Indiana is
You're right.
also
That's a
without.
lot of
They're
guys.
also without Miles Turner. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
unless they get a huge step up from Jarris Walker, Ben Mathurin, or someone like that, I mean, they are not going to be able to replace those two players. Those two players were huge. Like I have my issues with Miles Turner. I don't think Miles Turner is that great, but he's still a
Mhm.
starting center, and you don't have one. You know what I mean? So
Correct.
that's tough, man.
Like Detroit's a playoff team, right?
But
Right
Detroit just
now.
lost their 2
And
best shooters.
are the Raptors not as good as Detroit with this roster? I think
I'll
they
tell
are.
you this much. I think the Raptors are better than Detroit.
So do I.
Yeah, like I mean, personally, I've made a lot of enemies on the internet saying I think Scottie Barnes is better than Cade Cunningham. This year I look like an idiot, but hey, 3 out of 4 years ain't bad, okay? He was better for 3 out of 4 years. I don't give a shit what anyone says.
No, it's true.
But look, like what made Cade and what made the Pistons so great this past year effectively was Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. I think they were huge for providing space for him. They lost them. They're both gone. They're both gone. You know, Tim Hardaway signs for a minimum, and then they make the matters worse. They overpay the shit out of Duncan Robinson, and they overpay for Karis. Well, I don't want to say overpay for Karis LeVert. That's being disrespectful. Karis is awesome, but Karis LeVert and Cade Cunningham are not nearly as seamless a fit as Malik Beasley and Cade Cunningham. So maybe Jaden Ivey takes a huge step up. Maybe Asar Thompson has a huge ascent forward. I believe in both those players. I like Beef Stew. I like a lot of players on the Detroit Pistons team. I'm just saying it's hard to argue they're going to be better this year. I think the Knicks could be better, though, because I love what they did with their roster.
Me too. Yabusele and Clark. I like that.
Plus Mike Brown. Mike Brown's a great coach.
Brown too. Yeah.
Mike Brown's a great coach. He's a good guy. Great. And he has a bench. And he has a history of overperforming. He has a history of getting guys to buy in. He has a good deep roster, and maybe he's, someone who can connect with Karl-Anthony Townsend to play Defense. I don't know. Maybe he can get Cat to play some defense.
True.
So yeah, I mean, I see what people say when the East is wide open, but there's still 4 dogs in the East, in my opinion. Orlando, Atlanta, New York, Cleveland. Those are 4 teams. Mm-hmm. Those are 4 teams.
I really like what Atlanta did. I do.
I think they won the offseason. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is so underrated.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah, if KP is healthy, if Zachary Sachet takes another step up, I love Jalen Johnson. So, if Trae Young is happy and bought in, and then obviously Dyson Daniels is huge. So, yeah, I mean, the Raptors are probably aiming for 5. And then at that point, they face the other team that's there. And that's assuming they're going to be better than all those other teams, and we don't know for sure. So, yeah, like the East, people say the East is wide open until they watch the season play out. And then suddenly, oh, Orlando's a 60-win team. My bad. Desmond Bane was really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we'll conclude this by asking you if there's something you wanted to get off your chest. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to touch on that you just want to say to our audience, say to Raptors fans out there?
No, I mean, overall, I thank you for having me on your show. That's number one. I've enjoyed your content a lot. Been following you now I've seen you around for a long time, but I would say probably like the last 6 months, I've really started to pay a lot more attention to you. The one thing I want to see more from you on X are more video clips. I see a lot of writing, but I do enjoy seeing whenever you put your video clips. Sometimes you have clips that you put on X as well. So I would love to see some more of your video clips on X. That's my own selfish want that I would like to see from your page. I think
most people agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of film breakdowns. Yeah. Early, we call it OG PENSARE Basketball, was basically all film breakdowns. That's all we did. We just love to dissect the things between the game that people don't see, the missed passes, all that stuff. It's kind of unfortunate that we've only really ever covered this team when it was bad.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't wait to cover this team now that it's good. It's great. We've been super optimistic the last 2 years. Really, what I was not very optimistic 2022. I was just I called this team selfish a year and a half before Masai called it selfish. Like I was pounding my fist. I'm like, no, this is not the Raptors team that won the championship. These are not the vibes of We the North. And a lot of people hated it. They didn't want to hear it. They'd be like, Fred VanVleet just had a 2020 game. Come on, shut up. Like, I'm like, no, bro, like those are selfish assists. And people are like, what the fuck is a selfish assist? No, but I have enjoyed covering this team the last 2 years. I'm a very process-based person. I suspect, from talking to you for a little bit, you're very process-based yourself. So I just love that this is a great group of guys that we can all root for. Our community, one thing I'll say is like the greatest, I think this is the thing I'm most proud about this community. Maybe after a win, like a big win, we're not like the most watched show. We're like the second most watched show that night. But after a big loss, we're always the most watched show. Our audience never dips. And what I found super cool about that was like, these are the diehards. These are the people. These are the do or dies. And this is what this was my message to the Raptors when I applied for Media Pass. I was like, listen, if you have a bad season, there's no podcast community that's sticking with y'all better than Pensare Basketball community, because we ride or die. You go 0-82, we will still be here at the 82nd game, wondering how to win that one game. You know,
Which is
so
good, man. You need that. The players pay attention.
I know.
Players pay. Listen, I'll tell you that straight up. I know that firsthand. They pay attention. They do.
Yeah, I mean, we could all see who's checking out our stories and stuff like that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
people be creeping, people be, you know,
Yep.
but yeah, like I've never wanted to be negative about the Raptors. I love when this team is good. Think I can't wait for this team to watch this team in the summer league. It's only a week away. We're a week away from summer league. We're gonna watch Colin Murray Boyles hooping. We're not gonna be watching Grady Dick. He's not playing summer league, thank God. Not a good thing when you have to play summer league in your third year, so it's always like that's a vote of disconfidence from the organization. But can't wait to watch all these guys. Thanks a lot for coming on, man. To our audience, honestly, just this is me just saying this. I think Mike's podcast is awesome. I think if
Thank you, man.
If you have enjoyed Pensare Basketball, it is, in my opinion, maybe I'm just paying myself too big a compliment. It is a podcast of the same ethos. It's a podcast with similar goals. He talks about politics, and unlike me, he is very deeply connected to a lot of the people that you want to hear from politicians to Jack Armstrong to you've had Matt Devlin on, you've had Alvin Williams on, you have a ton of people. And every time I see your podcast and I'm checking it out and I'm watching your videos in full, sometimes I'm watching it, sometimes I'm doing something while I'm watching it, and I'll just look and I'm like, why does this podcast have like 1,700 subscribers? I mean, I was subscribed to you, I think, when you had 200 subscribers. I'm like, what the hell? Like what? So that's the, Key M saying subbed. Thank you very much.
Partially my fault as well, though, because before so I started YouTube maybe about a year ago.
Mhm.
And I haven't been consistent. I've always been on audio on like Spotify and Apple and stuff like that before. I'm really starting to try to pick up with my YouTube now. And I haven't made a video. This is the first time I've done a podcast in maybe about like the last 5 weeks. And I did mention to you that I was in Alberta for a bit for the G7 and working out there for a little bit and then came back. So thank you very much for getting me back rolling with this again. I had to do a move with my equipment into a different room in the house and all this kind of stuff. So I'm set up and just ready to go. Thank you very much, Rob.
Yo, it's my pleasure. Been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm really, really happy that we did it. And yeah, to anybody who needs a visual representation of this, definitely go check out the page here. Hold on, I'll just pull it up real quick.
And thank you to your subscribers, man. These guys are awesome. These guys, wow. You got a dedicated group. It's a real community here.
Oh, it is a real community. I mean, these dudes will stick with you if you're talking about life at 2 a.m. I'll do a live sometimes at 4 a.m. and I'll just be surprised when there's 250 people in there at 4 a.m. and we're just talking about chess, life. This is the Mike Roach podcast. Definitely go check it out. You could see the videos here. Alvin Williams, Leo Routens. I mean, just great. And you're supporting a good person in this space who keeps it real, keeps it honest. And I'm not just gassing you up here.
Appreciate it.
All our audience can definitely verify that I've said the term real, see real like probably 5 million times on this podcast. It might be just like I need to get a shirt that says real, see real. So appreciate you for coming on, man. Appreciate you so much. And everyone's saying sub. So hopefully you got like
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, peace. Stick around.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate your work. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up. Can't wait to follow you over the summer and over this upcoming season. It's going to be awesome, man. I'm hoping to do a lot more work with you too.
Absolutely. We'll have plenty of conversations, I'm sure, throughout the year. My girlfriend was saying, because she listens to your podcast too sometimes with me.
Oh, thank
you. And when Masai got let go, and I said I'm going to do a podcast with Mike, I think I told you this. She's like the two most honest guys in the Raptor space doing a conversation like this is the way it has to be. So appreciate you very much. Anyways, to our subscribers, please go sub up to Mike's channel, and please like this video, please, and please share this with somebody that you think is going to find this valuable. Thanks a lot for having this conversation. Stick around while your video downloads, by the way. All right, peace, guys. Okay.